The sound cuts through the morning air like glass breaking. Sharp, clean, final. Dr. Nia Calder's head snaps to the side, her cheek burning from the impact. The hospital entrance behind her rises like a monument. Brookhaven Medical Center carved into limestone columns that have witnessed decades of polished cruelty dressed as excellence. She doesn't cry out, doesn't step back. Her body absorbs the violence the way it has learned to absorb everything else. Quietly, strategically, without giving anyone the satisfaction of a reaction. Gavin Rourke's hand is still raised slightly, fingers spread, as if the follow-through matters more than the act itself. His security uniform stretches tight across his chest, badge catching the early light. Authority radiates from him like heat from asphalt. He breathes hard, not from exertion but from conviction. "I said move," he repeats, louder now for the growing crowd. "This is a restricted area." Around them, the world freezes in that specific way violence creates. People caught mid-step, mouths opening, phones rising like a reflex toward proof. A woman in scrubs covers her mouth. A man in a suit looks away quickly, pretending he saw nothing. Two police officers near the ambulance bay shift their weight but don't approach. Nia's vision clears slowly. The sting spreads across her jaw, down her neck, settling somewhere deeper than skin. She tastes copper. Her tongue finds the edge of her bottom lip, where it splits slightly against her teeth. "Before you go any further, I need you to do something. Hit that subscribe button right now. Because what happens next, you won't believe it until you see it." She reaches slowly into her coat pocket, the tailored blue wool that cost 3 months of resident salary years ago, the one she wears on days when precision matters. Her fingers close around her phone, then her hospital ID badge. Rourke moves forward, blocking her hand. "Don't," he warns. "Keep your hands where I can see them." His voice carries that particular tone, the one that assumes compliance, that has never been questioned, that mistakes volume for correctness. Nia recognizes it instantly. She's heard it in airport security lines when agents pull her aside. In hospital parking garages when guards demand to see identification she's already shown. In conference rooms where her credentials are repeated back to her slowly, as if translation is needed. "I'm Dr. Calder," she says quietly, her voice steady despite the metallic taste. "I'm expected inside. I have surgery scheduled." Rourke's expression doesn't change. If anything, his certainty deepens. "Sure you do." He crosses his arms. "And I'm supposed to just take your word for that?" A younger security guard approaches from the side entrance, radio crackling against his hip. He glances between them, confusion pulling at his features. "Gavin, maybe we should handle it." Rourke cuts him off without looking away from Nia. "I don't need help managing this." The younger guard hesitates, then retreats. The choice is made before he even turns around. The system protects itself through silence. Nia exhales slowly through her nose. Her hand remains still inside her coat. She knows better than to move too quickly, to reach too suddenly, to give anyone an excuse to escalate what's already happened into something worse. A nurse exits through the automatic doors behind them. Her stride breaks when she sees Nia's face, the red mark blooming across brown skin like evidence developing in real time. Recognition flashes in the nurse's eyes. Quick, certain, then carefully hidden. She looks down at her phone and keeps walking. The crowd thickens. Phones record from multiple angles now. Someone whispers something about lawsuits. Someone else mutters about keeping the peace. One of the police officers finally moves closer, not to intervene but to assess. His hand rests casually on his belt, near equipment that transforms situations from bad to irreversible. He looks at Nia first, cataloging her presence as the problem that needs solving. "Ma'am, we're going to need you to step aside," he says, his tone suggesting this is somehow for her protection. "Let's not make this more complicated than it needs to be." Nia's jaw tightens. The word complicated does heavy lifting in that sentence, erasing the slap, redistributing blame, framing her existence in this space as the disruption rather than the violence used to remove her from it. She opens her mouth to respond, to explain again what should be obvious, when her phone vibrates sharply against her palm. 3 short bursts. Emergency protocol. The surgery she's supposed to lead. The one two other specialists already declined because the risk was too high. Needs her now. Rourke sees the vibration, misreads it as defiance. You need to leave hospital property, he states flatly, or you'll be escorted off. The morning sun climbs higher behind the building. Shadows shorten. The cold air smells like exhaust and disinfectant, and that specific urban mix of concrete and consequence. Somewhere inside those walls, a patient is waiting. Somewhere inside, nurses are prepping an operating room. Somewhere inside, time is running out on someone's life while Nia stands here defending her right to save it. She looks at Rourke fully now, letting him see exactly what he's done. Not anger. That's too easy, too expected. Something quieter. Something that understands this moment will follow him longer than it will follow her. Check the staff directory, she says softly. My credentials are active. My surgical suite is scheduled. All you have to do is look. He doesn't look. He never intended to. Authority doesn't require verification when it can simply assert itself louder. Instead, Rourke reaches for his radio, lifting it to his mouth with the casual certainty of someone who has never faced consequences. His thumb presses the transmission button. Static hisses. His voice cuts through it, clear and final. Situation handled at the main entrance, he reports. Just another one trying to sneak in, sending her off now. The words land like stones in water, immediate, sinking, already shaping the official record before anyone inside can verify what actually happened. The radio crackles in response. A voice requests clarification. Rourke doesn't provide it. He clips the radio back to his belt and looks at Nia with an expression that suggests the matter is settled, that she should be grateful he's letting her walk away. Inside Brookhaven Medical Center, 3 floors above the entrance, an alarm begins to sound. What would you do if you were in her position? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Nia's palm presses against the cool stone of the hospital's exterior wall. The texture grounds her, rough limestone worn smooth in places by decades of weather and hands seeking support exactly like this. She doesn't lean. Don't let her full weight settle. That would look like weakness, and weakness becomes evidence retroactively. The crowd hasn't dispersed. If anything, it's grown. People angle their phones carefully, capturing her face, the red mark, Rourke's stance. Digital proof multiplies in real time, uploading to platforms she'll never see, but that will see her forever. Her tongue moves across her split lip again. The taste of blood mingles with memory. Not this moment, but others that share its DNA. The airport in Denver, where security insisted her medical bag needed extra screening, while white colleagues walked through untouched. The hospital in Philadelphia, where an attending asked her twice if she was sure she belonged in the surgical observation room. The conference in Seattle, where her presentation on vascular innovation was introduced as refreshing diversity instead of groundbreaking research. Each incident lived in isolation then. Together, they form a pattern she stopped being surprised by years ago. Rourke shifts his weight, boots scraping concrete. His confidence hasn't wavered. Why would it? The police officers remain at a distance, close enough to witness, far enough to avoid accountability. The younger security guard has disappeared entirely. The nurse who recognized her is already inside, safely beyond the glass doors that separate institutional power from public shame. You're still here, Rourke observes, as if her continued existence in his sightline constitutes defiance. Nia doesn't respond immediately. She's calculating. The surgery is emergency status. The patient's condition is unstable. 2 specialists already declined. She's the third call, the last option, the one they reached out to because excellence becomes undeniable when failure is imminent. But she's also calculating something else. The cost of walking away versus the cost of staying. Both prices are high. Both will be paid with interest. Her phone buzzes again. 2 short pulses this time. Not emergency protocol, a text. She doesn't check it. Can't afford the movement, the distraction, the appearance of anything that might be weaponized as suspicious. I need to speak with hospital administration, she says finally, her voice carrying despite its quietness. Someone inside can verify my credentials. Rourke laughs, sharp, dismissive. Administration doesn't have time to deal with every person who shows up claiming they work here. I'm not claiming, Nia corrects. I am Dr. Nia Calder, board-certified vascular surgeon. National recognition in complex reconstructive procedures, published in 3 major medical journals. And I'm currently scheduled to lead a procedure that's likely already underway without me. She says this not for him, he's already decided who she is, but for the phones, the crowd, the record being created in fragments across dozens of devices. A woman in the crowd speaks up, voice uncertain but audible. She's telling the truth. I saw her on the news last year. She saved that kid from the car accident. Rourke's expression tightens. Not doubt, but irritation that his narrative is being complicated by outside information. I don't care what you saw on TV, he snaps, not looking at the woman. I care about hospital protocol, and protocol says I determine who enters restricted areas. The police officer who spoke earlier approaches again, closer this time. His name tag reads Morrison. He addresses Nia with the careful tone of someone performing concern for an audience. Ma'am, if you'll just step aside for a moment, we can sort this out calmly. There's no need for this to escalate. That word again. Escalate. As if the slap didn't already escalate everything. As if violence is only defined by who retaliates rather than who initiates. Nia meets his gaze. I was struck across the face for standing near a building entrance. How much calmer do you need me to be? Morrison's jaw works silently. He glances at Rourke, then back to Nia. Let's focus on de-escalating the situation moving forward. The passive construction does its work, erasing agency, distributing blame evenly across victim and perpetrator, suggesting everyone shares equal responsibility for what one person chose to do. Behind them, the automatic doors hiss open. A man in a white coat emerges, moving quickly, his face drawn with urgency. He's young, early 30s maybe, with the exhausted precision of someone deep in residency. His eyes scan the crowd, land on Nia, widen with recognition. Dr. Calder, his voice cracks slightly. We've been trying to reach you. The patient's vitals are dropping. We need you in OR3 immediately. The air shifts. Phones adjust angles. The crowd murmurs. Rourke steps forward, blocking the resident's path to Nia. She's not cleared to enter. The resident blinks, confused. What? She's one of our lead surgeons. She's been cleared for months. He stops, seeing the mark on Nia's face, the stiffness in her posture, the police presence. Understanding arrives slowly, then all at once. What happened? Security matter, Rourke states. It's handled. It's not handled, the resident counters, finding his footing. We have a patient crashing. Dr. Calder is the only surgeon who can lead this procedure. If she's not in that operating room in the next 10 minutes, the patient dies. The weight of that statement settles over everyone. Death is consequence. Death is a deadline. Death is the cost of Rourke's certainty. Morrison shifts uncomfortably. His hand moves away from his belt. If she's a doctor here, then she should have said so, Rourke interrupts, instead of acting suspicious. I did say so, Nia replies, her patience thinning to transparency. You chose not to believe me. The resident pulls out his phone, pulling up the hospital's staff directory. He turns the screen toward Rourke and Morrison, showing Nia's profile, photo, credentials, department, active surgical schedule. Dr. Nia Calder, he reads aloud, vascular surgery, specializing in high-risk interventions, 3 national awards, 37 successful complex procedures in the last 18 months alone. He looks up. She didn't sneak in. She walked through the front door because she belongs here. Silence expands like a bruise. Rourke's face remains impassive, but something flickers behind his eyes. Not regret, but calculation. The kind of math people do when they realize the story might not stay contained, might not end cleanly, might circle back with teeth. Morrison clears his throat. Well, if the hospital confirms, I can confirm right now, the resident insists. We don't have time for this. The patient is bleeding internally. Every second we waste out here. His phone rings, cutting him off. He answers, listens, his face draining of color. Understood. Yes, I'll inform them. He lowers the phone slowly. When he speaks again, his voice is hollow. The patient's blood pressure just dropped critically. We're out of time. If Dr. Calder isn't scrubbed in within minutes, we're calling it. The crowd's murmur intensifies. Someone near the back shouts about lawsuits, someone else about recording everything. The moment fractures into noise and movement and phones held higher, capturing every second as proof or entertainment or both. Inside the building, beyond the glass doors and institutional certainty, something crucial gives way. An alarm sounds, high, insistent, unmistakable. The kind that announces crisis. The kind that measures time in heartbeats rather than minutes. The resident's radio crackles violently. A voice cuts through. Sharp, urgent, desperate. Code Blue, OR3, Code Blue. Patient Elaine Rourke is... The transmission ends abruptly. Rourke's face goes white. If you were watching this unfold, what would you do? Comment below. The radio transmission repeats in Rourke's head like a scratch record. Patient Elaine Rourke. His wife's name. His wife's code. His wife bleeding out 3 floors above while he stands here proving a point that suddenly means nothing. Time collapses. The crowd, the phones, the justified stance he held 2 seconds ago, all of it vanishes into a single, terrible focus. Rourke's hand reaches for his radio, fumbles it, nearly drops it. His fingers don't work properly. Authority dissolves into panic, and panic has no protocol. Elaine, he breathes, not a question, but a fact he can't process. He moves toward the entrance, forgetting Nia, forgetting Morrison, forgetting everything except the alarm still shrieking inside the building. The automatic doors sense his approach and open. He stumbles through them, his boot catching on the threshold. The resident follows, already pulling out his phone to alert the surgical team. Nia remains frozen for exactly 3 seconds, long enough for the irony to register fully, for the cosmic precision of this moment to settle into her bones. Then she moves, not rushed, not hesitant. She walks through the entrance with the calm certainty of someone who has always belonged here, who was always going to end up here, who understands that doors opening or closing never really mattered. Morrison and the other officer exchange glances but don't stop her. Their authority just meant something bigger than protocol. Nobody blocks a surgeon when death starts counting down. Inside, Brookhaven's lobby gleams with curated perfection. Marble floors, recessed lighting, abstract art that costs more than most people's salaries. Diversity posters line the walls, smiling faces frozen in stock photo harmony. The disconnect between image and reality would be laughable if it wasn't so tired. Nia's shoes click against marble as she crosses toward the surgical wing. Staff members recognize her immediately, some with relief, others with confusion, a few with that specific embarrassment of witnessing injustice and doing nothing. A senior nurse, Teresa, meets her halfway across the lobby. Her face is drawn, sweat beating at her temples despite the aggressive air conditioning. Dr. Calder, thank God. We've been trying to reach you for 40 minutes. Elaine Rourke came in for routine gallbladder removal 3 days ago. Everything seemed fine until this morning. She started hemorrhaging internally. The original surgeon can't be reached. Dr. Patterson looked at the scans and declined. Dr. Shu said it was too complex for his experience level. Teresa's words come fast, clipped, professional fear masked as efficiency. They walk together toward the elevators, other staff members falling into formation around them. Nurses, residents, technicians all moving with the coordinated urgency of people who understand that minutes equal mortality. Imaging? Nia asks. CT shows a nicked branch of the hepatic artery. Small initially, but it's been leaking for hours. By the time we caught it, she'd lost significant blood volume. We're transfusing, but pressure keeps dropping. She needs immediate surgical repair, and the vessel placement is complicated, Nia finishes. I know. I've done this procedure twice. Both patients survived. Teresa's relief is visible. Her husband is being brought up now. He's in shock, I think. The elevator arrives. They step inside. The doors close, sealing them into that specific silence hospitals create, the kind that acknowledges suffering without naming it, that treats crisis as routine because routine is the only way to survive this work. Nia catches her reflection in the polished steel doors. The mark on her face is darkened, purple blooming underneath red. Her lip is swollen. She looks exactly like what she is, someone who was assaulted 45 minutes ago and is now expected to perform complex surgery with steady hands. She touches the mark gently, winces, then drops her hand. The elevator opens on the third floor, directly into controlled chaos. The surgical wing hums with contained urgency, staff moving quickly but not running, voices raised but not shouting, everything calibrated to manage crisis without surrendering to it. A resident intercepts them immediately. Dr. Calder, patient's BP is 78/45 and falling, heart rate 142. We've got her on 2 units of packed red blood cells, but she's not stabilizing. OR3 is prepped. Anesthesia is standing by. Nia processes information while moving. Recent labs. Hemoglobin at 6.2. Platelets adequate. INR normal. She's not coagulopathic, just bleeding out faster than we can replace volume. They round a corner. The surgical suite doors loom ahead. Double-paneled steel with small wire-reinforced windows. Beyond them, Elaine Rourke exists in that liminal space between treatable and terminal. Teresa hands Nia a tablet with the patient's chart. Nia scrolls quickly, absorbing details. Age 52, no significant medical history. The initial surgery performed by Dr. Franklin Chen, who's currently unreachable on vacation. Post-op notes indicating normal recovery until 6:47 this morning, when nursing staff noticed increased abdominal distension and dropping blood pressure. Classic delayed hemorrhage, missed during initial closure or developing gradually from vessel wall weakness. Rare but not unheard of. Deadly if not addressed immediately. Where's Dr. Chen's operative report? Nia asks. Here. Teresa swipes to another screen. He noted some difficulty with the cystic artery ligation. Said the anatomy was slightly aberrant, but that he achieved hemostasis. Nia reads between the lines. Slightly aberrant means complicated. Achieved hemostasis means he thought he stopped the bleeding. Thought isn't the same as confirmed. The surgical suite doors swing open. Inside, organized chaos resolves into precise choreography. Nurses lay out instruments in gleaming rows. The anesthesiologist reviews medication dosages. Monitors display vital signs in declining numbers that measure Elaine's remaining time in heartbeats and blood pressure measurements. On the table, draped and prepped, Elaine Rourke breathes through a ventilator. Unconscious. Vulnerable. Dependent on the competence of someone her husband tried to deny entry to this building 47 minutes ago. Nia pauses at the threshold. The weight of choice settles across her shoulders. Not whether to help, but what helping means. She could walk away, could cite the assault, could let the hospital scramble for another surgeon while Rourke learns what it costs to mistake cruelty for authority. Justice would be served, karma would be satisfied, and a woman who did nothing wrong would die to teach her husband a lesson. Nia moves to the scrub station. Behind her, voices rise near the surgical waiting area. Rourke's voice, specifically, loud, ragged, demanding answers from staff who don't have them yet. Where is she? What's happening? Someone needs to tell me what's happening. An administrator tries to calm him, professional, measured tones designed to contain panic. It's not working. Rourke's authority has curdled into desperation, his certainty replaced by the specific helplessness of realizing you're not in control. You never were, and the person who might save everything is someone you just hurt. Teresa appears beside Nia at the scrub sink. He's asking about the surgeon. I want to know who's operating. Nia works soap between her fingers methodically, watching pink-tinged water spiral down the drain. Blood from her split lip mixing with antiseptic and water and the residue of this impossible morning. Tell him, she says quietly. Teresa hesitates. Are you sure? Maybe we should... Tell him, Nia repeats, her voice carrying that specific weight doctors develop when certainty matters more than comfort. He should know whose hands his wife's life is in. Teresa nods and disappears. Nia finishes scrubbing, dries her hands, moves to gowning. A nurse helps her into sterile gear. Gown, gloves, mask. The familiar ritual centers her, strips away everything except the work. She's done this hundreds of times. The mechanics are muscle memory, but the circumstances? Through the small window in the surgical suite door, she sees Rourke in the hallway. Teresa must have told him because his face has gone from panic to something worse. Recognition and horror combining into an expression Nia will remember long after this day ends. He sees her through the window. Their eyes meet across sterile space in institutional power and the smoking remains of his authority. Rourke's mouth opens, closes, opens again. He moves toward the door. An administrator blocks him firmly. "Mr. Rourke, you can't enter the surgical area. You need to wait in—" "That's her," he interrupts, his voice breaking. "That's the woman from outside." "Yes," the administrator confirms. "Dr. Calder is our lead vascular surgeon. She's the best chance your wife has." Rourke sags against the wall, his uniform suddenly looking too big, his authority revealed as costume rather than substance. He tries to speak, to explain, to apologize, to undo what can't be undone. But Nia has already turned away. Inside OR3, monitors beep rhythmically, measuring Elaine's declining stability. The anesthesiologist calls out another blood pressure reading, 72/42. Time is running out. Nia steps up to the table, extends her hand, and a nurse places the scalpel firmly in her palm. "Let's begin," she says. "Could you do what she's about to do? Drop your answer below." This is where everything changes. The scalpel breaks skin in one clean line. Nia's hands move with the precision of someone who has done this exact procedure 43 times before, twice successfully with this specific complication, once in a teaching hospital in Baltimore, where the patient coded twice during surgery, once in Chicago, where the vessel was so damaged she had to reconstruct it entirely from donor tissue. Blood wells immediately, controlled but insistent. The suction nurse anticipates her need, clearing the field before Nia even glances up. Years of surgical teamwork compress into silent choreography. Instruments passing hand to hand, gauze replacing gauze, monitors announcing numbers that tell stories about oxygen and pressure and time. Elaine Rourke's abdomen opens under lightened blade and careful fingers. The previous surgeon's work is visible immediately. Neat sutures, organized closure, the kind of technique that looks perfect until something goes catastrophically wrong beneath it. "Retractors," Nia says quietly. Metal spreads tissue, the surgical field expands, and there it is, the problem hiding in plain sight. A small branch of the hepatic artery, slightly aberrant in position just like the operative notes mentioned, now leaking blood in a steady pulse that matches Elaine's heartbeat. Not a dramatic rupture, just a slow, relentless bleed that's been stealing her life one heartbeat at a time since early this morning. "There," Nia points with a clamp. "See the angle? The original ligation caught the main vessel, but missed this branch entirely. It probably looked secure during initial surgery, then the tissue weakened post-op." A resident leans closer, absorbing the lesson even in crisis. This is how surgeons learn, watching excellence under pressure, understanding that perfect technique means nothing if your anatomy knowledge has gaps. Outside the operating room, beyond the sterile field and controlled environment, Gavin Rourke exists in a different kind of hell. He sits in the surgical waiting area, industrial chairs designed for discomfort, fluorescent lights designed to reveal every shadow under every eye, silence designed to amplify fear. His uniform feels wrong now. The badge that gave him authority 2 hours ago just reflects overhead lighting back at him, meaningless metal on meaningless fabric. Other families wait nearby, scattered across identical chairs, lost in identical fears. A woman prays quietly. A man scrolls his phone without seeing it. A teenage girl sleeps with her head against the wall, exhausted from keeping vigil. None of them know Rourke. None of them know what he did. But he knows. The memory plays on loop. Nia's face absorbing the slap, her calm voice explaining credentials he refused to verify. The certainty he felt standing there proving a point that meant nothing. His hands shake now. He clasps them together, trying to still the tremor, but it just transfers to his legs instead. An administrator, Sharon according to her name tag, sits 2 chairs away. Not beside him, not offering comfort, just present, professionally, in case updates arrive or decisions need making or things go wrong in ways that require institutional management. "How long?" Rourke asks, his voice rough. Sharon checks her watch. Surgery started 42 minutes ago. Vascular repairs typically take between 2 to 4 hours, depending on complexity. And Dr. Calder, he can't finish the question, is the best we have, Sharon completes. 3 national awards for surgical innovation, published extensively on high-risk vascular interventions. When other surgeons decline a case, we call her. The praise sits in Rourke's stomach like glass. Every word of competence, every mark of excellence, makes what he did outside worse. He didn't just slap a random woman. He assaulted one of the most accomplished surgeons in the region while she was trying to save lives. His radio sits silent on his belt. Nobody has called him. Nobody has asked for updates. The other security guards know by now. They always know. The whisper network in hospitals moves faster than official channels. He hit a doctor. The video is already out there. His career ended the moment his palm connected with her face, but that doesn't matter as much as Elaine does. He pulls out his phone, scrolling without purpose, then stops on a photo from last month. Elaine laughing at some joke he can't remember now, her face bright and alive and healthy. The image blurs. He blinks hard, refusing tears he doesn't deserve. Sharon's phone buzzes. She checks it, her expression carefully neutral. The surgery is progressing. No complications so far. Relief and dread mix in Rourke's chest. She's okay? She's stable, Sharon corrects. There's a difference. Back in OR3, stable is a relative term. Nia isolates the bleeding vessel, tracing it carefully through tissue that's inflamed from hours of leaking blood. Everything is slippery, swollen, harder to navigate than it would be in a fresh surgical field. One wrong move and the vessel tears completely, turning a controlled repair into an emergency hemorrhage. Clamp, she says. The nurse places it in her palm. Nia positions it with millimeter precision, stopping the blood flow without crushing the vessel walls. The field clears immediately. Red fades to pink to the pale yellow of exposed tissue. Better, the anesthesiologist confirms. BP coming up, 84/48. Nia works quickly now, her hands moving through muscle memory and expertise. She places sutures with the kind of precision jewelers use on fine settings. Each stitch exact, each knot secure, each movement building a repair that will hold when the clamps come off and blood pressure returns and Elaine's body tests whether this fix is temporary or permanent. Sweat beads at her temples despite the cool operating room temperature. The mask hides her split lip, but pain pulses there with each movement of her jaw. Her cheek throbs where the mark has deepened into full bruising. She ignores it. Pain is information, not permission to stop. "How's the repair looking?" the resident asks. "Good," Nia replies. "Clean edges, adequate tissue, no tension on the suture line. We'll do a flow test before closing." She finishes the last stitch, ties it off, cuts the suture, then steps back slightly, examining her work from a different angle. Surgeons live in that space between confidence and doubt. Certain enough to cut, humble enough to verify. "Release the proximal clamp slowly," she instructs. The nurse complies. Blood flows into the repaired vessel gradually, filling it, testing the sutures. Nia watches intently. No leaks, no weakening. The vessel holds. Distal clamp. More blood flow, more pressure, still holding. The anesthesiologist's voice carries relief. BP 92/52 and climbing, heart rate dropping to 118. She's stabilizing. Around the table, shoulders drop slightly. Not celebration, they're not done yet, but acknowledgement that the crisis point has passed. Elaine will live. The repair will hold. Excellence under pressure just won the gamble. Nia allows herself one full breath before continuing. "Let's irrigate thoroughly and prep for closure. I want to make sure there's no residual bleeding anywhere else." They work for another hour, checking, cleaning, ensuring nothing was missed, that no other surprises hide in tissue they haven't explored. By the time Nia places the final closure suture, 3 hours have elapsed since the first incision. She steps back from the table, strips off her gloves, drops them in the waste container. Her hands ache. Her face aches. Her entire body carries the weight of this impossible morning. "Nice work, Dr. Calder," the anesthesiologist says. "That was textbook." Nia nods acknowledgement. Textbook would be performing this surgery without first being assaulted by the patient's husband, Textbook would be walking into a hospital without having to defend her right to exist in the space. But she doesn't say this. The team did good work. That's what matters now. She exits the OR, moving to the scrub station. The sterile gown comes off, the mask, the surgical cap. In the mirror above the sink, her reflection stares back, bruised, swollen, exhausted, and undeniably excellent. Sharon appears in the doorway behind her. Mr. Rourke is in the waiting area. He's asking to speak with you. Nia meets Sharon's eyes in the mirror. What exactly does he want to say? I think he wants to apologize. The word hangs between them. Apology, as if words could undo violence, as if contrition erases assault, as if his fear for his wife's life somehow makes hitting a stranger outside a hospital entrance less monstrous. Nia turns slowly, facing Sharon directly. Tell him his wife survived the surgery. Tell him she'll need close monitoring for the next 48 hours, but the repair looks solid. Tell him she's lucky. Sharon nods, understanding what's not being said. And if he insists on speaking with you? Nia's voice drops to something quiet and absolute. Then tell him this. What he did wasn't a mistake. It was a choice, and choices have consequences that apologies can't erase. She walks past Sharon, moving toward the locker room, where her street clothes wait and the rest of this day needs to be faced. Behind her, the surgical suite empties. Nurses cleaning, residents documenting, everyone returning to the machinery of hospital life, where crisis becomes routine, becomes paperwork, becomes memory. In the waiting area, Sharon delivers the message to Rourke exactly as Nia said it. His face crumples. Not relief, not gratitude. Something worse. Understanding that he's been forgiven nothing, that his wife's survival doesn't erase what he did, that the woman whose competence just saved Elaine's life will never give him the absolution he's desperate for. But before Sharon can turn away, her phone buzzes again. She checks it. Her expression shifts, professional neutrality replaced by something sharper. She looks at Rourke. Hospital security is here. They need to speak with you about the incident outside. There's also a police detective waiting. Rourke's remaining color drains completely. The video has done its work. What consequence does Rourke deserve? Drop your answer in the comments. The hospital administrator's office feels smaller than it should. Rourke sits across from his supervisor, Martin Hayes, head of Brookhaven security for the past 12 years, and the reality of ending crashes over him in waves. His badge sits on the desk between them. So does his radio, his access card, the small accumulation of authority he spent 15 years building. Martin doesn't look angry. That would be easier. Instead, he looks tired, disappointed. Like he's cleaning up a mess he saw coming years ago, but hoped would resolve itself differently. The video has been viewed 400,000 times in the last 3 hours, Martin says quietly. Major news outlets are picking it up. The hospital's board has already convened an emergency meeting. Rourke tries to speak. His throat closes. You struck a physician, Martin continues, each word landing with finality, in front of witnesses, on camera, while she was trying to enter the building for an emergency surgery. There is no version of this where you keep your job. I didn't know, Rourke starts. You didn't ask, Martin interrupts. She told you who she was. She offered identification. You refused to verify. That's not a mistake, Gavin. That's a decision. The same words Nia used. They echo differently now. In this office where consequences live in filing cabinets and disciplinary protocols. Martin slides a folder across the desk. Your employment is terminated effective immediately. You'll receive final pay for hours worked this week. Your benefits end at month's end. Security will escort you off hospital property within the hour. Rourke stares at the folder. His hands don't move toward it. There's more, Martin adds, his voice dropping. The police are investigating potential assault charges. The hospital can't interfere with that process. Dr. Calder has every legal right to press charges if she chooses. The walls feel closer, the air thinner. And there's this. Martin opens another folder, revealing documents Rourke recognizes, prior incident reports. 3 from the past 2 years, complaints about aggressive behavior, racial profiling, excessive force in routine situations. Each was investigated. Each resulted in warnings. Each was filed away as isolated incidents rather than patterns. Until now. The board is concerned these complaints should have triggered stronger action earlier, Martin explains. There will be an external review of security protocols and hiring practices. Your personnel file will be part of that investigation. Everything Rourke built, every year of service, every shift worked, every moment of pride in the uniform collapses into those folders. Evidence, pattern, proof that what happened outside wasn't an aberration, but an inevitability. Martin stands, signaling the meeting's end. I'm sorry, Gavin. For what it's worth, I hope your wife recovers fully. The kindness in that statement somehow makes everything worse. 3 floors above in the intensive care unit, Elaine Rourke breathes through oxygen tubes and monitors and the careful observation of nurses who check her vitals every 15 minutes. She's awake now, groggy, confused, in pain that medication dulls but doesn't erase. A nurse explains what happened gently. The bleeding, the emergency surgery, the doctor who saved her life. Where's Gavin? Elaine asks, her voice weak. The nurse hesitates. He's been informed you're stable. He'll be up soon. What the nurse doesn't say, can't say, is that Gavin is being escorted from the building by security officers who used to be his colleagues. That he's being handed a box containing personal items from his locker. That he's being walked through a side exit to avoid the news crews gathering near the main entrance. What the nurse doesn't say is that the doctor who saved Elaine's life is currently being interviewed by hospital administrators, legal counsel, and a patient advocate about what happened outside. Nia sits in a conference room with too many people asking questions she's answered versions of before. Different contexts, same pattern. Explain yourself. Prove your humanity. Justify your presence. Defend your right to be treated like everyone else. A lawyer, representing the hospital, not her, takes notes carefully. Can you walk us through the incident from the beginning? Nia does, calmly, precisely, without emotion coloring the facts. She describes arriving early, standing near the restricted entrance, reviewing patient notes. Rourke's approach, his accusations, her explanations, his refusal to verify, the slap. Did you strike back? The lawyer asks. No. Did you verbally threaten him? No. Did you make any gestures he might have interpreted as threatening? Nia's jaw tightens. I reached into my coat for my identification. He chose to interpret that as threat rather than compliance. The patient advocate, a woman named Keisha, who actually seems to care, leans forward. Dr. Calder, we want to support you through this process. The hospital takes these incidents extremely seriously. Nia meets her eyes. Do you? Keisha blinks. I'm sorry. Take it seriously, Nia clarifies, because this isn't the first time. A nurse recognized me outside and said nothing. Security patterns at this hospital have been questioned before. The diversity posters in the lobby don't match the reality of who gets stopped, who gets questioned, who gets believed. Silence settles over the conference room. The lawyer shifts uncomfortably. An administrator clears his throat. Keisha holds Nia's gaze. You're right, and that's going to change. Is it? Nia's voice stays level. Or will this become another isolated incident? Another individual bad actor? Another opportunity to avoid examining the systems that made this possible? Before anyone can answer, the door opens. A woman in an expensive suit enters. Late 50s, silver hair, the kind of presence that changes room temperature. Sharon follows behind her, looking nervous. Dr. Calder, the woman says, extending her hand. I'm Patricia Morrison, Brookhaven's chief executive officer. I apologize for not being here sooner. I was in emergency board meetings addressing this situation. Nia shakes her hand but says nothing. Patricia sits, dismissing the lawyer and administrators with a glance. Only Keisha remains. What happened to you this morning is unacceptable, Patricia begins, not just as a violation of hospital policy, but as an assault on your dignity, your profession, and your right to be here. I'm deeply sorry. Apologies again. Everyone wants to apologize now that cameras caught what they ignored before. Mr. Rourke has been terminated, Patricia continues. We're conducting a full review of security protocols and staff training. We're also implementing mandatory implicit bias training for all personnel and establishing an independent oversight committee for future complaints. Nia listens to the corporate speak, policies and protocols and committees that sound impressive in press releases but mean nothing without enforcement. I'd like to offer you a formal position on that oversight committee, Patricia adds. Your perspective is invaluable, and I'd like to discuss expanding your role here. Perhaps department chair for vascular surgery. Perhaps involvement in our diversity initiatives. There it is. The offer that makes the problem profitable. Turn your assault into opportunity. Let us benefit from your pain. Nia stands slowly. I need time to consider what happens next. Right now, I need to check on my patient. Patricia nods, reading the dismissal correctly. Of course, take whatever time you need. And Dr. Calder, thank you for staying, for operating, for being exactly who you are despite what happened. Nia leaves without responding. In the hallway, she pulls out her phone. 53 missed calls, hundreds of messages. Emails from news organizations, advocacy groups, other hospitals, colleagues, strangers who saw the video and wanted to express outrage or support or solidarity. One text stands out from her mentor, Dr. Claudia Barnes, who trained her during residency. Saw what happened. I'm proud of you. Call when you're ready. Nia deletes most messages without reading them. She doesn't need strangers' anger or praise. She needs what she's always needed, to do her work without having to prove she deserves the space to do it. She takes the elevator to the ICU. Elaine Rourke's room is easy to find. Flowers already arriving despite visiting hours restrictions. That specific energy that surrounds rooms where death got close but not close enough. Nia checks the chart first. Vitals stable. No signs of recurring hemorrhage. The repair is holding. In 3 days, maybe 4, Elaine will go home with follow-up appointments and dietary restrictions and a scar that will fade over months. She won't remember the surgery, won't know how close she came, won't understand the irony of who saved her. That's fine. Nia didn't save her for gratitude. She saved her because a life was on the table and she had the skill to preserve it. That's the job. That's always been the job. A nurse approaches. Dr. Calder, there's a detective downstairs asking to speak with you about pressing charges. Nia considers this. Assault charges mean trials, testimony, reliving the moment for lawyers and juries and media coverage. It means making herself vulnerable again, this time in courtrooms where credibility gets questioned and victims get cross-examined. But it also means accountability. Tell them I'll be down shortly, she says. The nurse nods and disappears. Nia stands in the ICU hallway, surrounded by the rhythmic beeping of monitors and the soft conversations of nurses and the specific smell of institutional care. Somewhere in this building, Gavin Rourke is leaving through a side exit, his career over, his certainty shattered. Somewhere in this building, administrators are crafting press releases that distance the institution from individual actions while promising systemic change that may or may not arrive. Somewhere in this building, her name is being attached to words like hero and inspiration and symbol, when all she did was refuse to let cruelty define her worth. Her phone buzzes, another message. This one from her father. Saw the news, come home for dinner tonight. Your mother's cooking. We love you. Nia's eyes burn. She blinks hard, swallows, steadies herself. Then she heads toward the elevator to speak with the detective about what justice might look like. Should she press charges? What would you do? Comment below. The news cycle moves fast, but some stories have weight that keeps them circulating. 3 weeks after the incident, Nia's face still appears on screens, not as a victim, but as a symbol. Magazine articles, think pieces, panel discussions about racism in healthcare, implicit bias in security, the gap between diversity statements and institutional reality. She declined most interview requests, said yes to 2. One with a medical journal where she could discuss vascular surgery advancements without performing her trauma. One with a Black physicians network where she could speak honestly about navigating spaces designed to question your belonging. The assault charges moved forward. Rourke pled guilty to avoid trial, received probation, mandatory counseling, community service. The sentence felt simultaneously too much and not enough. Legal accountability without the kind of reckoning that changes systems. But systems were changing, slowly, in ways Nia could see. Brookhaven implemented new security protocols, badge scanners at all entrances, mandatory verification before any confrontation, independent oversight for complaints. The diversity committee she agreed to join actually had power now. Budget authority, hiring influence, the ability to enforce rather than suggest. Other hospitals reached out. I wanted her expertise. I wanted her presence. Wanted to prove they were different, better, more aware. Some offers were genuine, others were performances. Nia took a position at Massachusetts General, leading their vascular surgery program. Better pay, better resources, better institutional commitment to the values Brookhaven only discovered after cameras forced them to. On her last day at Brookhaven, she cleaned out her office quietly. No farewell party, no speeches. Just boxes of research papers, medical journals, patient success stories that mattered more than the incident that made her famous. Teresa, the senior nurse, stopped by with coffee. "We're going to miss you," Nia smiled. "You'll be fine. Dr. Kim is excellent. The department's in good hands." Teresa set the coffee down, her expression serious. "What you did that day, operating on her after what he did, that took something I don't think I could have managed." "You could have," Nia replied. "You would have. That's who we are." "Still," Teresa insisted, "it mattered. Not just the surgery, the choice. It showed people something they needed to see." Nia understood what she meant. The story that went viral wasn't just about assault. It was about excellence refusing to be diminished, competence transcending cruelty, Black women doing impossible things while carrying impossible weights. She didn't ask for that responsibility, but she carried it anyway, the way she always had. Across town, in a small apartment that felt too quiet, Gavin Rourke existed in the aftermath of consequences. Elaine recovered fully. The surgery left a scar, but no complications. She returned to work, to normal life, to everything she had before except certainty in her husband. She didn't leave him. Not yet. But something fractured that morning. Trust, maybe. Or the assumption that the man she married was fundamentally good despite his flaws. She saw the video, watched him slap a stranger with casual conviction, heard him call for her removal while she lay bleeding upstairs, understood that the woman he tried to deny entry to was the only reason she survived. That knowledge sat between them now at dinner tables and during quiet evenings. Unspoken but present, Rourke's new job paid less. Security at a shopping mall, checking bags and monitoring cameras. No badge, no authority, no uniform that carried weight. The counseling sessions were mandatory, but he attended voluntarily too, trying to understand how he became someone capable of what he did. The answers were uncomfortable. Easier to blame stress, misunderstanding, bad timing than to examine the racism that felt so natural it didn't register as choice. He thought about Dr. Calder often, wondered if she thought about him at all. I hope she didn't. Hoped his violence didn't occupy space in her mind the way her competence occupied his. He saw her once, months later, at a medical conference Elaine attended. Dr. Calder was on a panel discussing surgical innovations. Confident, brilliant, unbothered by his presence in the audience. He left before it ended, couldn't bear to stay. At Massachusetts General, Nia's reputation grew beyond the incident. Papers published, awards earned, surgical techniques taught to residents who would carry them forward. She mentored specifically young doctors of color who navigated the same hostile spaces she survived, taught them excellence as shield, taught them dignity as weapon, taught them that belonging isn't granted by institutions but claimed through competence they can't deny. One resident, a young Black woman named Jasmine, asked her during rounds, "How did you do it? Operate on his wife after what he did?" Nia paused, considering the answer. "Because her life wasn't his. She didn't assault me. She didn't choose his actions. And I didn't become a surgeon to let innocent people die, proving points to guilty ones." Jasmine absorbed this. "But didn't you want him to feel what you felt? Powerless, helpless." "He did feel it," Nia replied, "the moment he realized I held his wife's life in my hands. But I didn't exploit that power. I used it the way it's meant to be used, to heal, not harm." "That's harder," Jasmine observed. "Yes," Nia agreed. "It is. But harder doesn't mean wrong." They continued rounds, moving between patients. Each case a story, Each story a life. Each life mattering exactly the same, regardless of who loved them or what those people had done. That evening, Nia sat in her new apartment overlooking Boston Harbor. The view cost more than she thought she'd ever afford. The silence felt earned rather than lonely. Her phone held the usual messages: patients following up, colleagues asking questions, family checking in. One notification stood out: an email from Brookhaven's CEO. Subject: 1 year later, she almost deleted it. Then curiosity won. Patricia Morrison's email was brief. The oversight committee was working. Security complaints decreased. Implicit bias training expanded. 3 department chairs now were people of color. Change was slow but measurable. The email ended. None of this erases what happened to you, but I wanted you to know that your choice to stay, to operate, to hold us accountable, it mattered. Thank you. Nia closed the email without responding. She stood, walking to the window, where harbor lights reflected off dark water. Somewhere in this city, patients slept in hospital beds, hoping tomorrow brought healing. Somewhere, surgeons prepped for morning procedures. Somewhere, the machinery of medicine turned, imperfect and essential. She thought about the morning outside Brookhaven, the slap, the silence, the choice. She thought about Elaine Rourke, alive because excellence transcended revenge. She thought about the young doctors she mentored now, carrying forward not just surgical techniques, but the understanding that their presence in these spaces was revolution wrapped in scrubs. The incident would follow her. She knew that. Every article, every introduction, every "isn't she the one who?" question. But it wouldn't define her. Her work would, her competence, her refusal to let anyone else's limitations become her ceiling. She returned to her laptop, opening files for tomorrow's surgery. A complex aortic repair, high risk, high reward, the kind of case other surgeons might decline, exactly where she belonged. Her phone buzzed one final time. A text from Dr. Barnes, her mentor. "Proud of you, always have been, always will be." Nia smiled, typed back, "Thank you for everything." Then she returned to her work, preparing to save another life, carrying the weight of excellence the way she always had, with steady hands and unshakable dignity and the quiet certainty that she earned every space she occupied. Outside, Boston glowed in the darkness. Inside, Dr. Nia Calder prepared for tomorrow. The work continued. It always would. Dr. Calder's story reminds us that excellence speaks louder than hate, and dignity outlasts cruelty. If this story moved you, inspired you, or made you think differently, don't keep it to yourself. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss stories that challenge, uplift, and remind us what strength really looks like. Drop a comment below, share your thoughts, your experiences, or just let us know this story mattered. Because when we share stories like these, we don't just inspire each other. We change the conversation. We build a community that refuses to let injustice have the last word. Subscribe now. Your voice matters here.